This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
Welcome everybody to this new episode of Kahani Kashmir Ki. Toichu Sarni Hat Hat Namaskar. Today I want to introduce you to someone very, very special and personally very dear to my heart as well. I want you to meet her because she represents a new hope and optimism for not only Kashmiris around the world, but she's also an inspiration for all young people of her generation. I would like you to meet Pearl Raina. Pearl is a high school student who lives in the Bay Area in California. She is a very accomplished painter and artist who has displayed her work in galleries and has won innumerable awards, honors, and distinctions. We are very, very proud to showcase young Kashmiri talent like Pearl on this show. Pearl, welcome to our show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for taking some time to come and talk to us, Pearl, and share your pearls of wisdom with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me get started. Let me dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started as a painter, obviously at a very young age, because you're still very young. So how did you get started?
So my journey started when I was around 4 years old. I was in preschool and I was sort of like this introverted child. I didn't really know how to like make friends at that point. So the only thing that really brought me happiness was art. And so I would sit on my preschool desk and just paint for hours on end. And my preschool teacher at the time, her name is Stacy. She's still in contact with me. She's one of my biggest supporters. She recognized this and told my mom, like, hey, you know, like she has like a fondness towards art. Like you should totally put her into art classes. And from that moment on, I entered an art class and I started doing oil paintings. And my first oil painting ever was this flower in the sunset. And it was like a silhouette. And it's still one of my favorite pieces to this day. And yeah, I moved on from oil painting. I did landscapes. I did all of that. Then I moved to foundational techniques like blending, shading, anatomy. And sooner or later, I started finding my love for portraiture. And so I started doing like famous personalities like Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, for another example. That's how it really began. And the reason why I realized that the reason why I was doing all these famous personalities was because the story and meaning behind each of these people is what drew me in. The reason why I was doing these famous personalities is because they did something in their life. They accomplished something that I was inspired by. And so I really needed that type of story. And as an artist, right, like when I was 4 years old, I actually lived in India for 6 months with my grandparents. And there I was really submerged in the culture and the religion and everything, the traditional values and that. And it really changed my perspective as an artist and inspired me now to this day too.
Mm-hmm. Are the same things that inspired you at the time, do they still inspire you, or have you felt a change as you are growing older, as you're maturing as an artist as well as a human being? Are you finding that your sources of inspiration are changing? Or tell us a little bit. I want to peek into a painter's mind for a
Yeah.
minute.
Well, I think I was so young when I started that my inspirations kept changing as I kept growing as an artist. You know, some things definitely stayed within, like my culture and my cultural identity as a Kashmiri. That's something that I'll stick with forever. But for example, when I was in fifth grade, one of my biggest inspirations was Frida Kahlo. She's a female artist, and I really looked up to her even as a feminist as a young age, as someone who also did portraiture too, a lot of self-portraits. That's something I still borrow to this day from her. It really does change the more you grow. So it started off with Frida Kahlo, and then it started getting into things that I'm surrounded by. So nowadays my art is more about what I see and what I want to talk about in society that I feel like, you know, are kind of controversial topics that most people don't really talk about in art. And I think art is a perfect way to showcase what you're feeling as an artist, what you feel should be fixed as a society. And that is definitely one of them. Another big inspiration in my life was one of my mentors, Armando Delgado. And he really enhanced my art techniques and my love of art in general. And I'll talk about later, but he was one of my mentors and helped me figure out my love of art and teaching as well. And, you know, he's still a big part of my life. And he still helps me to this day. And he's a beautiful person. But genuinely, it's just the people that surround me and the meaning behind everything I feel to this day, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's very fascinating. Since we are on the topic of Armando Delgado, tell us a little bit more about him and tell us how he inspired you through this journey.
He was my mentor. I think in the when I was like 8 years old, I used to go to his art classes, and he really taught my love of art and really figured out like what sort of techniques do I want to like perfect, and why do I do art really. It was definitely about techniques too, but it was more about like what is it about art that I love specifically, and that's where I really honed of like the meaning behind each of my pieces and the reasoning to why art is so important to me. That's what he really took out of me and extracted out of me. And I appreciate that to this day.
Uh-huh. Tell me, you said before that he also set you on the path of teaching. I think this is a really good segue into tell us a little bit about what you are doing these days. And I know everybody's very excited to look at your paintings, but we'll give them a minute. Tell us a little bit more about what is it that how is it that Armando put you on the path of teaching, and what is it that you are doing with that now?
So when I was younger, I always had this little like attraction towards teaching. If I was like just in class and I'm like waiting for instructions or something, I would go to like younger kids. I was 8 years old myself, but I would go to younger kids and tell them like, hey, you should put more shadows over here. Even though I was so young, I didn't even know what I was doing. But at the time, you know, there was this sort of thing that I knew that I wanted to like help people and really find their love towards art and why they love towards art. So when I was 14 years old, I started my own art class in my basement studio, and it started off as these like summer workshops, and then later on it turned into these like every Saturday classes. And you know, it started off with foundational techniques, the same thing that I was taught at a young age. Like I taught them anatomy, blending, shading, and one thing that I did do differently, because I understand art is different for each person, I introduced personal projects. So whatever they wanted to draw, it was up to them. So their favorite characters from their TV show, if they wanted to draw a tree that they were really into, I let them do whatever they wanted, because, you know, art is a journey on your own. You're kind of on your own, and whatever you feel that you want to do, go for it. Be my guest. I will try helping you on that pathway. So that was that journey. But then quarantine really set a different pathway, and it was a really big moment changing in my life, because I had to figure out how to teach over Zoom and over virtually. And that's something I know a lot of people had to go through, just this like completely different outlook onto, you know, our journey as humans, as people in general. So I had to buy this overview camera that showcased my sketchbook as a bird's eye view, so they could see what I'm doing and I could help them. And that really attracted a lot of students. I now teach 4 classes a week. I teach adults to kids, 5 to 40 years old. And they work on sketching, and now on Sundays I teach painting classes, and we're actually working on a Buddha piece. We're working on this Buddha piece right now. This is the finished one, but we're on our way towards finishing it right now. Yeah, this one over there. We're on our way towards finishing it. But the reason why I do these Zoom classes, it was really different because this is when I started teaching adults too. And so a moment that really changed my outlook on why I teach was one of my students, she's a healthcare worker. And especially during the beginning of quarantine, everyone was going through a lot. And it was a really dark period during that time. And she once told me, like, these art classes really changed my life, and it's kind of a distraction for everything that I go through. And hearing that, as an 18-year-old from like a healthcare worker really set me back, and really like I was in my head and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe just like these 2-hour art classes are changing people's like lives. Like, that's insane. I still can't even grasp it, to this day, but I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity. And
that's got to be such a proud moment, but also a very humbling moment as well, when you find out the impact that you are having on other people around you.
Very much so. And, adults are one thing, which is really interesting, and kids are a whole other thing. But, I love teaching kids. They're just like a huge light, that they bring to me like 3 times a week. They're just full of energy, and you can just tell like how much love they have towards art and just interaction in general with somebody, especially during this isolation period. Just like conversations with each other is just what keeps them going too. And it's totally humbling. I love teaching. I love interacting with people. It was a big moment. Quarantine was a big changing moment in my career.
That's great. That's awesome. Before we jump on, I want to ask you one other question. So in addition to your teaching and the classes, I know that you do other events. Tell me a little bit about some of your other events that you're doing outside of your classroom experience.
Totally. So this actually started off with me when I started working with an organization called Warriors for Empowerment. And there I started fundraising for their purposes, and we started doing paint and sip events. So I would teach a painting in 3 hours, and I was around 30 adults the first time, and it was in person before quarantine started. And we were all just doing a piece. I had my microphone set in. I was like, okay, this is the next step. So it was a really interesting take on teaching. And it's a really interesting way, because now that I've worked with a bunch of different organizations, that was definitely my first. I started doing birthdays. I started working with other companies for like bonding experiences. And it was a totally different outlook on what teaching can do. And especially paint and sip events, it's a perfect way to do some quick art. Like if you just want to do a painting in 3 hours, acrylic sometimes attracts people. They're like, oh, painting, that sounds so fun. It's this perfect way to like get people started into artwork and their journey towards art too. So that's how paint and sip events started for me.
That's fantastic. And especially again, in this time, I think I've noticed a lot of people are wanting to do something creative, something with their hands. And so this can feel like such a sense of accomplishment in a world that is so confusing and disturbing around you.
Right.
What a fantastic idea. All right. So this is a great time for a quick plug. So if somebody wanted to find you to try to take your classes or to get you involved in a paint and sip event, how do they find you?
Find me on my Facebook page at Pearls Art Studio. There I showcase all of the things I'm working on, whether that would be paint and sip events, the classes that I teach, artwork that I'm doing to this day, and even commission work if you guys would like me to do any of that. Just find me on Facebook over there, and I'd be very happy to respond to you and see what I could do for you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pearl. To all our viewers, Kashmiri viewers, non-Kashmiri viewers, Pearl Raina is your gal.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, Pearl, I know this is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. Show us some of your work and talk us through it. Tell us what it is. Tell us a little bit about the background. Tell us about the inspiration. Take it away. Show us what you've got.
Totally. Here I go. So, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Sorry. I need to showcase my
Okay.
artwork.
Yeah, we were seeing multiple screens there.
One of the first pieces that I'm going to be talking about is a piece that relates back to my cultural identity. While I'm sharing it, It's about my cultural identity as a Kashmiri woman in America. And so this is my first piece. And it's a Kashmiri Pandit, and he's wearing the yoni with a red tikka. And I created this with charcoal. The man is in charcoal. And the outside, you can see the screen, correct?
Yes, we can.
Cool. So the outside is created in color in gouache, which is a type of acrylic paint. So this is my depiction of the dichotomy between my past religious beliefs and my current religious beliefs. Like I said, when I went to India, I was introduced into Kashmiri culture, and it's a big part of my identity. But as a religion standpoint, I didn't really know what I wanted to feel and what my definition of spirituality was. So the black and white man was my past understanding of religion, and around him are my depictions and my perceptions of Indian gods in color, because that's when I truly started understanding what spirituality meant to me. And so this is basically like the dichotomy between my spiritual experience as a Kashmiri person in America.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Pearl, tell us a little bit about the gods in color that I'm seeing around you. The screen is, very small for me. So tell us a little bit about some of the images that we see around the man.
Totally. So in Hinduism, a lot of deities and goddesses are borrowed from a bunch of different animals. And because I'm trying to find my own depiction of that, I drew a bunch of different animals of my depictions, and just like odd looking animals, and then like eyes surrounding them, hands, and then a lot of different just like various creatures around him, because it's my definition, so it's kind of borrowed from an idea that I created into my own, if that makes sense.
It's beautiful. It
Thank you.
depicts the mind of a young person,
Exactly.
and a lot of times, somebody who has the heritage that we do and is living in a society that's a little bit different from the heritage that we come from, and to amalgamate those experiences into this one beautiful painting. Kudos to you, Pearl. This is beautiful.
That means so much. So the next piece is
Mhm.
called In Control. And so this topic I'll bring up later on too, but I as an artist, we tend to kind of question ourselves and our abilities, because this is definitely a hard road to take. And so this was a different time in my life. I depicted myself surrounded by these octopus tentacles constricting me, and its tentacles constricting me. But during this time, I didn't know my abilities. I didn't know if I was good enough. There was a lot of self-doubt. But I started moving along from that and really growing as a person, as an artist, creating self-confidence for myself during this period, because I have my arms around the octopus tentacle, because I'm finally, like, during this time, I was finally gaining control of my abilities, and I kind of created confidence for myself as an artist, and I knew that I could overcome this, and these type of feelings, it kind of happens with everybody, but you really just have to persevere as an artist, as a person in general, and have control in your thoughts and your abilities, because you definitely can.
Yeah, and that look on your face, the gleam in your eyes, and the positioning of your hands, what it tells me is that this is the second before you take the tentacles and shake them off, and
Exactly.
that confidence in your eyes, it's just amazing to me.
Thank you. This was done also in charcoal. And so this
Beautiful.
piece, the next one, it's called Anticipating Pufferfish. And so this kind of relates back to my beginning quarantine experience. And so I depicted myself, in my messy room drinking chai with my art supplies all over my bed. And I'm submerged underwater with these pufferfish around me. Um, and so the pufferfish is my depiction of coronavirus molecules. I saw that coronavirus molecules and pufferfish kind of went hand in hand together. And so those pufferfish are kind of watching me outside of my window, making sure that I don't leave outside my house. It was a scary time at the time. But, most people during that time, we were extremely unmotivated and confused and scared of like what was going on. And of course, isolated because we were inside. And I was submerged underwater because that further depicts my isolation period and how I felt trapped in my mind. And I did try doing artwork during that time, and everything was, supposed to be perfect. But as you can see over here, like I have an empty white piece of paper because I just didn't even know what to create, For me as an artist, I had to go outside. I had to interact with people, interact with what was around me. And that wasn't really given for me. And so it was kind of hard adjusting to that. So this was like the adjustment period to beginning quarantine.
Hmm. This is so validating for so many people, younger people, young adults, as well as adults who went through and felt the same feelings,
Right.
but it's such a beautiful depiction of that. And as an adult, I can tell you that that's so validating to see that, oh, I was sharing this feeling, these negative thoughts with
Yeah,
the rest of humanity. um,
exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful depiction, Pearl, beautiful.
Thank you. So something I'm getting into right now, I'm kind of going towards an animation route as an animation major. And so this is something that I was going towards my professional career. And so as animators, we have to create character designs. And so I created this royal man, and he was an ice cream king is what I created him as. And we have to create different versions of his face, looking left, straight, and right, and then a full body. And so, he's in control of his kingdom, like he's the king, but he's actually a super nice person. And so animation, as I'm growing, as an artist, I'm trying to figure out what my career means to me. Animation was this perfect thing to go towards because, like I said, meaning was so important in all my pieces. And animation was the perfect way to explain a story, explain a plot, because, through characters, through symbolism and whatever show, movie, there is some sort of meaning behind each story, And so I thought this was a perfect kind of career to go towards as I'm growing up. And this is what I'm thinking for now. But this was just a character design of Sir Isaac Snow is his name.
Oh, I love that name. Awesome choice.
So my last piece is I did this in acrylic, and it's a sort of acrylic. It's done in gouache, like I said. And so this piece represents anxiety. Represents addiction. And I illustrated him as an embryo with a matured hand smoking a cigarette. And so he is surrounded by this black around him because that represents the toxins that his mom is intaking. And so there's a statistic that states that if you're surrounded by people who abuse substances, you're more likely to too. And so these toxins are slowly infusing into like the baby's umbilical cord, and he's starting to gain these horrible traits, as that the mother is taking. And so that's why he has a matured hand to represent the mother's hand. He's smoking a cigarette, and it's affecting his head the most, so that's why I created black around his head to showcase that, it's his head that's being abused as an embryo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is my last piece. And, as an artist, I try to focus on topics that I go through, but also that society, faces, because, we have to move on from situations like these. These are hard situations. And, as a society, we have to move on forward and talk about these issues in order to fix them. And so this was my final piece that I wanted to show you guys.
This is a very hard-hitting piece, Pearl. I'm just amazed at the level of maturity that's depicted in this art. For somebody as young as you, I am just completely floored. This is beautiful and an amazing depiction, obviously, artistically, but conceptually and thought-wise, it's just beautiful. So mature, so far advanced for your chronological age.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your beautiful artwork with us, Pearl. Um, Tell us, so also looking at these paintings, I've had a couple of questions. I want to ask you, especially since the one with the pufferfish where you showed yourself with a blank piece of canvas / paper. Um, do you get creative blocks? Do you get artistic blocks? And how do you overcome them?
Totally. I think that's something that a lot of people face. I used to face a lot of that, especially towards the beginning. And quarantine was the first time and the longest time that I had an art block after so long, because it's something that nobody was expecting, nobody was used to. And it's something that in any sort of art person, whether that would be music, dance, or visual arts, has to go through. And it's really just a growth period for artists. Even though if you feel like you're not doing any art, that feeling of not doing art in a sense motivates you to create more later on. There's a sort of period that you kind of have to force yourself, and then it kind of clicks, and then you create this mass work. It sometimes happens where you don't create work for ages, and then you just create, because that's what happened with me in quarantine. Even with artwork, even with teaching, a kind of creative like switch clicked finally after my art block, and it happens to all of us, and it's something we just have to face and overcome.
Yeah, it's like the floodgates open at some point.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your proudest moments in your journey as an artist so far. What have been some of the milestones that you remember to this day, and share that with our viewers, please.
Totally. So when I was I think I was in 8th grade, I had the opportunity to meet Malala Yousafzai and gift her a portrait of her. And that was a big moment in my artistic career, because I'm meeting someone so noble, and it was such a humbling experience to meet someone who's gone through so much, and for me to present a portrait to her was such an honor. And actually I met her dad there, and I brought a photocopy with me, and he ended up signing that photocopy saying, "You are really such a pearl." And that was such a humbling experience. Thinking about that, I was so young at the time too, and it was a big moment for me. And another big moment for me was when I received the Creative Arts Award. I ended up meeting Shishmita Sen, and I created a portrait of her, and I received an award from her, and it was a big moment for me as an artist too, and in my career and whatever I want to go towards. But yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last couple of questions and sub questions here. Tell us, share some words of wisdom with all the aspiring, all the aspiring artists out there, and share some words of wisdom with parents and caretakers of all the aspiring artists out there.
Totally. Yeah, no, from a community, I understand. Here, we don't really tend to focus on the creative arts too much. And it's something where if you aspire to focus on becoming any sort of artist, and whether that would be music or whatever type of art that is, it's really something where you have to prove yourself and persevere. I even had to, my parents were very supportive in whatever I did. But I definitely had to prove myself to myself too, And I think the biggest thing you can do as an artist in the creative arts is prove yourself to the people that surround you, whether they don't believe in you. The more you work hard, the more you persevere, the more you prove yourself, they will understand where you're coming from. You really just have to work hard into what you're trying to strive for. And if you work hard to the point where people notice and people are starting to respect your artwork or starting to respect you in general, it sort of clicks, and it makes people understand that this is no joke. This person is going to do well because they have that sort of confidence in themselves in order to persevere into whatever pathway that they want to take.
Mhm. Excellent. Great advice. Tell us a little bit of advice for the parents. What should the parents be
I
doing?
think, it depends on the community. If your kid is really working hard in something that they're passionate about, I think you should really pay attention to it, because you're only so good at something that you don't like. That's one of the biggest things that people
True.
need to understand. If you love something, you will be good at it. That's just how it is. You want to do that forever. Everything comes from hard work, but before the hard work, it's if you're passionate about it. And I think if you notice that within your kids, they will succeed if they put in the work. And if you see them putting the work, really pay attention to what they're trying to do, because they will put in that work in order to succeed at whatever they're trying to go for.
Yes, that's great advice for all the adults out there and all the parents out there who are looking at their children working hard and demonstrating and displaying a passion for something. Again, my personal request to everybody is, promote that interest, promote that passion, because you never know, you might become, or your child might become the next Pearl Rena.
Oh my God. Thank you. Oh my God.
Of course. Any last words before we say goodbye to you, Pearl? Do you want to tell us anything about what I would like to hear from you is, what is your favorite Kashmiri food?
Oh my God, that's a hard one. Okay, for the longest time, I love all Kashmiri dishes, but for the longest time, definitely was Rogan Josh. But now I'm starting to get to really like Manja Hawk. I love Manja Hawk. I've been getting into more vegetarian dishes, but for the longest time was definitely Rogan Josh. Kashmiri dishes are so rich in flavor, you won't find that really anywhere else.
True. Great. Any last words of wisdom before we let you go, Pearl? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. No, I think that was it. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for listening to me. I appreciate
Oh, of course. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out here and talk to us. We are very, very thankful to you, and we are going to be tracking your amazing future through Facebook. And we hope to hear about, we know we are going to continue to hear about you. And I know you will make the entire Kashmiri community very, very proud.
so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, all the viewers. We really appreciate you joining us for this episode of Kahani Kashmir Ki. We really appreciate your time. But in the meantime, this is your show. This is everybody's show. This show belongs to the entire Kashmiri community. Ye Chutuhun show as much as it is mine. So please join us for the show. Tell your friends and family about it. And also, if you want to come on the show and share your talent with us, share your stories with us, you're please welcome to call me, text me at 513-488-5070 and come on the show and share your stories. This is your platform. In the meantime, wherever in the world you are, have a wonderful day, and we will meet you again soon. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one of its kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information, and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago, and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sfurti, shakti, and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.